We are back again with more Diddy updates, day 7. Let's get it.
So day 7, Diddy walked into court this morning in really good spirits. He actually turned around. There's a press section and a public section in the courtroom. And he turned around to the section of the public and he gave like a heart to them. And one woman gave it back. That was an interesting moment.
He always doing that.
But we finished off with the we finished off with the rest of the direct of David James, the assistant. And David James testified some pretty things that I thought were shocking. He was forced to take a polygraph twice when Cassie's love bracelet went missing, and another time when Diddy's watch went missing. And he described being very nervous for both of those. And he said that he passed the first polygraph totally fine, but the second one, he said he passed the question about stealing the watch, but the guy that was administering it was like, "Are you nervous about something?" And he said that he admitted to taking a pair of Sean John jeans and like a bottle of Ciroc or something like that. He also talked about not seeing any physical violence between Cassie and Diddy, but he did see them argue a lot. He also testified, and this is direct, he testified that one day in January of 2009, he was doing some research on something for Diddy at Diddy's house, and Diddy and Cassie walked in from a club. I guess Cassie went to bed, but Diddy was very irate and kind of ran over to him because of some blog post that got released about Cassie getting hit at a club, and he really accused David James of maybe spreading this or releasing this to a blog, and he said that he was very scared because Diddy kind of pushed him out of the way and started searching his browser history to see if he was lying. And he describes that moment as just being really tense and really shocking. He talked about how he, at one New Year's Eve party, he took ecstasy. He was off and he stole it from Diddy's med bag, and he was vibing, having fun at this party. He actually called what he was doing around the party Diddy bopping. Sorry, I didn't mean to do it. That's dumb. And when he said Diddy bopping, Diddy actually laughed. And so he said the next day, he's back at work, and apparently he said Diddy took video of all of his parties. So Diddy was playing back video footage of this party, and he's like, "Yo, David, is that you?" And David said, "Yeah, that's me." And he said, "Were you on drugs or on ecstasy?" And he said, "Yeah, I was." And Diddy said something along the lines of, "Well, I'm going to keep this in case I need it," type of thing. We also heard about David James advancing rooms for Diddy. And advancing rooms could mean anything from, a green room at the Ellen Show to hotel rooms. So he described making them very comfortable for Diddy, and he would go and get snacks at Dwayne Reed, and he would be reimbursed for this. He would use his own money, and then he would submit expense reports to Bad Boy and be paid for them. Woo! Okay. So he actually said, and this is nothing to do with the trial, but it was so weird. He said that Diddy would request things like Jell-O and applesauce, and I was just like, oh, is he getting his wisdom teeth out? But, he also said that Diddy liked to put applesauce on cheeseburgers. But when he had to buy baby oil or Astroglide or condoms, he said he would not expense these, and he would get paid through cash, through like a security guard or something. And just going to the cross-examination for just a minute, when he was being crossed, Agnifilo really wanted to hammer home. So, when you bought these things, the baby oil, the Astroglide, this was not through Bad Boy. This was not through Bad Boy. He kept kind of, hammering that home. All right, so he also talked about an incident where he was called to bring some food to Cassie and Diddy at a hotel, and it took him about an hour, or maybe he was not just food, maybe it was like an iPod or iPad, but he said that when he got to the hotel, no one was answering the door, so he used the key because he would set up the hotel, so he would have a key. So he said he put the key in and he walked in, and Cassie was on her back in the bed with the covers pulled up. And the way they wanted us to, I guess, picture this was that David James said he had seen Cassie sleep before, but it didn't look like she was sleeping because he always saw Cassie sleep on her side, not on her back. And then he saw a naked man with long hair who was very well endowed. And he thought Diddy was in the shower. And then they left it at that, kind of hinting, okay, you guys know what this is. You know what's going on here. He also talked about the Mel's Diner incident, which, at this point, I think we've heard a couple different versions of this story, and his version was a little bit different. So he testified that Diddy sent he and D-Rock out for cheeseburgers, and Diddy was home with Cassie. They go out for cheeseburgers. They're in the car in like a silver type of SUV they described, and they see D-Rock says, yo, that's Suge. So David James is driving and D-Rock is in the passenger seat, and he gets out. Sorry, it's tangled. He gets out and he goes around to Suge, who's in the passenger seat of the car, doesn't get out. I guess they exchange hellos, and Suge doesn't recognize D-Rock, and he says, yo, I'm Biggie's boy. And Suge says, what are you doing in my city? And he says, you know, I'm making money, whatever. They, you know, say bye. He goes into Mel's Diner. Hopefully you guys, sorry, can hear me. He goes into Mel's Diner. Didn't need that close up. And David James goes with him. And I guess it's glass, this location. So D-Rock looks outside, and he said that he sees 4 different SUVs pull up, you know, on different corners of the parking lot. And then he sees Suge hand a gun, or somebody hand a gun to Suge. So D-Rock's like, yo, we gotta go. And then David James describes them going home. He said that, you know, D-Rock tells Diddy this. Him and Cassie are outside arguing, and Diddy instructs him to get into another car, a black SUV, where David James is driving, and D-Rock is in the passenger seat, and Diddy's in the back with 3 handguns on his lap. When they got to Mel's, it appeared that Suge was gone. He drove around for a while. Essentially, they ended up going home. And David James said he was very scared, and he said that he immediately went to Bad Boy after this HR, and he quit. And he said he gave 6 months notice they could find someone else. And they were like, well, do you want to work at Sean John, or do you want another job, whatever? And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm out.
Boy, Diddy was ready to blast, to shoot something, huh?
So he described being scared. Now, that is, let me see. I think, well, I'll get to this because this came up during the defense. There were some moments. But yeah, so he also described that Diddy would have some Viagra in his medicine bag and some Just for Men. Nothing to do with the case, but just little details. Yeah, we heard about this Louis Vuitton med bag again.
I mean, that's where he kept his dope at.
Yeah, I think I got it all. Okay, so we'll go to the cross. Now, yeah, when we got to the cross examination, it was pretty interesting because Mark Agnifilo really was asking him questions about Mel's Diner, like, are you sure that you drove D-Rock to Sean Combs' house and Diddy didn't have to go pick him up? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. There was a back and forth for a moment that I was confused about. I'm very curious about this. And then Agnifilo was like, so how are you able to talk about this right now? Aren't you scared that you're going to get in trouble? And he said, no, I have a proffer agreement. So that was kind of a big moment. I thought that he had a proffer agreement, and yeah, he got him to admit that, you know, he respected Diddy, and he respected Diddy as a businessman, I should say. Sorry. He respected him as a businessman because he loved Sean John. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this video to 10 minutes. And, he asked about, like, oh, wasn't Bad Boy like one big family? And he said, yeah, they were my friends. I liked them. He talked about him getting a prostitute with Roger Bonds, and he actually said, oh, I didn't know she was a prostitute. Sorry, I guess that is my opinion, because I was like, dude, you had me until you said you didn't know she was a prostitute. Okay. And he actually said that he paid her $200, and he was surprised, and she asked to take a shower, and he was like, yeah, for $200, like, give me it back. It was kind of a weird, funny moment. But okay, just to move on, I'll update, you know, later if I missed anything. Then we heard from Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura, very quick on the stand, and she talked about, this was crazy, she talked about that threatening email that Diddy had sent to Cassie, or I'm sorry, the threatening email description that Cassie sent to her mother when she was dating Kid Cudi about Diddy releasing these sex tapes of her and hurting Kid Cudi and Cassie. And apparently Diddy had asked for money, $20,000 from Cassie's parents, and they took out a mortgage to give it to him. And I guess it's a little unclear if it was he was asking Cassie or her parents, but they gave him $20,000. I guess you could call that extortion. I think that's what they're alluding to here. And yeah, they took out a second mortgage, or a mortgage, to pay him. And then 45 days later, it was returned. So there's that. And then she described the phone incident in LA.
All I can see, I think that's just power. He rich. He don't need your money, but he wanted to show that he has that power.
Where he took Cassie's phone. She was in town. She called the police, and they had an argument outside of Cassie's building. And he eventually gave it back. She described kind of trying to hit him and stuff and lunge at him. And then once he gave it back, he took off with her car. Now, the defense did not cross-examine him. A strategy, a good one. You don't cross-examine the victim's mother, I feel like. And so, when I left, they were starting with an escort named the Punisher. So we heard a lot more about baby oil, a lot more about how he came into the picture the same way as Daniel Phillip.
I mean, so far, all we seeing is the same thing. Diddy is a big freak. He's a control freak. He loves to take drugs. But I don't see anything about the sex trafficking yet or racketeering. You know what I'm saying? He had the guns for Suge Knight. Yes, they had beef a long time ago. I guess we'll continue on.
We're going to start with the direct of Sheree Hayes, also known as, quote, the Punisher. Now, he is not technically an escort. He actually worked for a company called Hunkamania. I think I called it Hulkamania because that's what I heard at first, but it's Hunkamania, and that would make more sense. Male strippers, exotic dancers, and he also he ran this website, thepunisher.com, which was his own website for his own services, which is strictly dancing for bachelorette parties, etc. And he said that he got the nickname The Punisher when he was playing basketball in New York growing up. That was his style of basketball. I don't even know. I don't know sports. He punished people, whatever. Okay, so he described the same, I guess, way that Daniel Phillip described meeting Cassie and Diddy. Cassie called him, said that she wanted his services for a bachelorette party. He showed up at the hotel, which was the Trump Hotel in New York City. And just a side note, I'm on direct, but the defense was like, so you only worked or saw them in New York City. They didn't say work, sorry. They said you only met with them in New York City. And he said, yes, you know what they're getting at. So he said he shows up at the Trump Hotel and Cassie shows up in a robe and she says, it's my birthday. My husband wanted to plan something special for me. So, can you just set the mood here and can we just make the room sexy and stuff? And he's like, okay, well, how do we do that? And she handed him a stack of money to do this. And he said later it was $800. He counted it when he went to the bathroom. He comes out, he takes his towel off, and she said, we should start rubbing baby oil on each other. And he actually described seeing bowls of water with baby oil in the water that they used. And then he said that Diddy came out, although he didn't know who Diddy was at the time, and he didn't know it was Cassie either. He came out in something that covers his face and he could only see his eyes. And he would, direct them as usual and then masturbate a little bit. Everything that we've heard before, basically. But Cassie and the Punisher, he said that he didn't finish, and Cassie asked him if he wanted to finish. I was unclear if they had intercourse this time. I don't think they did. I missed just a chunk of his testimony, just full disclosure. So the first time, I'm not sure, but he said when I got back in the room, Cassie asked me if I wanted to finish, and I said no. I took more money. They gave me $1,200 more, and I left. And this is interesting because he is the second escort, let's call him, that we have heard from who experienced erectile dysfunction. Although he described the Punisher, or Hayes described his erectile dysfunctioning kind of starting before Cassie and Diddy. I just want to throw that out there. And then he also would say things like that Cassie would seem to sigh at Diddy's direction, kind of like, it was a job, and those are my words, the direction during the FOs. And so it turns out he also wrote a book, and the book, he wrote it in September 2022, and this is about curing his ED and just living with ED. He called it a self-help book, and the government asked him if there was anything about Cassie and Diddy in there, and he said, out of 182 pages, there's about 6 pages that refer to them, my experience with them as a wealthy married couple. He confirms he doesn't say their names, nothing like that. He just wanted to detail his experience in order to help other people. So they kind of, got ahead of that. So he also said the details aren't exactly accurate. He exaggerated a little bit just for the sake of the book. And so then Xavier Donaldson did the cross, and he's pretty funny. That's one of Diddy's defense attorneys. He's also known as a super lawyer. And he goes, so what's the name of your book? And the Punisher said, it's called In Search of Freezer Meat. Wow. And he's like, freezer meat, like hard meat. And everybody, like the jury was laughing. It was kind of funny. Everybody was laughing because, you know, hard, he was talking about ED. Yeah, you guys get it. So he talks about how, you know, you worked at Hunkamania, and you have this website, thepunisher.com, and actually it turns out now Hayes, or the Punisher, is a partner in Hunkamania. And he said, so neither of those websites offer prostitution or sex work. And he's like, no. And he's like, so you're not a sex worker, essentially. He also talked about the fact that the Punisher had been doing this for 25 to 30 years, and the Punisher called what he did while he was doing strip teases to women, he called them professional dry humps. And you know, what? Donaldson was like, so like you wouldn't professionally dry hump somebody that didn't want to be dry humped? And he's like, no, not at all. I want to make sure they're enjoying it, which led them to Cassie. And essentially he elicited testimony from Donaldson, which said that Cassie always appeared to be, quote unquote, enjoying herself to a degree, but he did not know, he couldn't speak to the fact if she ever climaxed. And it's not that she appeared to be enjoying herself every single time, 8 to 10 times, that he saw her. There was one particular instance that they spoke about, where he said she really appeared to be enjoying herself. I'm not going to get into the details. It was pretty graphic, I felt like, but sorry, it's busy out here. He hinted that he thought she enjoyed herself because he finished doing something to her, and then she scooted forward without being directed by Diddy to do so. And then she kind of like looked at him, and Diddy like gave her a head nod, like, go ahead, have fun. So
Diddy was a freak.
Yeah, but the other 8 to 10 times, you know, he just got the testimony out of him that, you know, Cassie seemed fine. And this is my words, not his, paraphrasing. Just looking, he said at one point Diddy came out of a room during a session, and he threw condoms on the couch in, like, I guess an aggressive way, but not in a threatening way. And he said, I want to see you at her. And then, you know, he said one time he showed up at the room and Cassie had to cancel, so she gave him $500, and the defense was like, so you didn't always get paid for your quote unquote services, you got paid for your time. Just kind of, you know, trying to just say he wasn't just coming over there for sex. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. He said she didn't appear to be on drugs. But, you know, then during the recross, the government was like, well, to be fair, like, did you ever see her? They didn't say to be fair, but they said, did you ever see her outside of these situations? No? Okay. And are you around people that take a lot of drugs? Do you take drugs? And he's like, no. And then that was really the end of that. And then we heard from Special Agent Gerard Gannon, who is Homeland Security, HSI Miami. He participated in the search of Diddy's Miami home on Star Island back in March of 2024. And again, a lot of it was the layout of the house. We saw a lot of pictures of the house. Man, this was a really nice house, in my opinion. I was like, oof, that is beautiful. And we got to see the inside of the second floor. And the closet that had the evidence that we saw on the screen and also in person, with Special Agent Gannon showing it to us on the stand. So we saw pictures of, in this closet, AR-15s, lower receivers with the magazines, and upper receivers that were wrapped in a towel. And then we saw 7-inch platform heels, condoms, sex toys, and then lingerie. And then we saw a crate of baby oil and Astroglide, literally a crate. And the magazines were loaded with bullets. There was 19 rounds in one AR-15 and then 10 in the other, and they were both semi-automatic. And
it's not illegal to have loaded weapons, AR-15s in Florida. I mean, the 7-inch platform heels, it was probably for Cassie. Lingerie, I mean, he had a whole bunch of baby oil and Astroglide. Still not illegal. A freak fetish and stuff, but yeah, still not illegal.
Let me see. I think that's pretty much it for today with what we saw. They said one of the AR-15s had a red dot optic on it, which is makes it easier to hit the target. The other AR-15 did not have that. They had an iron sight, less easy to hit a target. Oh, and they were defaced, which they had explained to us. It makes it very difficult or almost impossible to trace, you know, a bullet to a gun and whatever. Sorry, very technical, whatever. And yeah, that was about it. So we're gonna finish with him tomorrow, and then we're told that Kid Cudi will testify this week. So that should be crazy.
I think more celebrities might get called, and then I wonder if Kid Cudi is going to talk about the situation of his car getting blown up, supposedly from Diddy. So I can imagine like all these celebrities back in the days at the parties, at the freak offs and whatever a long time ago, enjoying themselves, and then next thing you know, they enjoying their life, then he gets in trouble, and then they gotta relive all this, and they might get called, and names get thrown up, all that. This whole situation is crazy. If you like the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit me up on the comments, talk about the trial or whatever. Let's get it.